What's up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of the Believe in Big Ten podcast presented by FanDuel. I am Brandon Brown, and it's a bummer. We're down Grant Perry today. He's currently recovering a little bit under the weather, but we are certainly excited to have our guest, Wes Blankenship, here. He's part of the See Ball, Get Ball podcast. Wes, we'll call you a college football expert. Are you cool with that? Are you good with that label?
I'll take it. Yeah, I've been covering college football for over a decade now and covering it as a fan for all my life. So appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said before we started recording, you're a self-proclaimed more of an SEC guy. We got a little SEC flavor in there. So we'll start there with the Ole Miss versus Miami matchup. Obviously, for our purposes, the Big Ten focus, that Indiana-Oregon game, the rematch from before is a big one, and we will certainly get into that as well. But with Ole Miss, man, I mean, this team, this story, kind of everything that's been going on. And look, I'm a Michigan guy through and through, born and raised in Michigan. So the Trinidad Chambliss story is just incredible to me, where he came from and not being recruited, playing at Ferris State. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the campus there at Ferris State, but as a Central Michigan alum, I have been to Ferris many a time for some late night shenanigans and things like that. So I find myself being a natural fan of Trinidad Chambliss just because of where he's from and what he's been able to do. Is that seems pretty widespread. I don't think you have to have my background to feel that way, but let's talk about this kid for a minute and how important he is and just how he's been able to kind of get where he's at.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I went to Georgia, and obviously that was a tough Sugar Bowl to watch, but in the big landscape, the big picture of college football, it's amazing to me the parallels between what Trinidad's done coming from JUCO, having just an amazing career, and what Stetson Bennett did in Athens a couple years ago, taking that similar path. He wasn't as good as a JUCO player, but he went on to unlock some really, really big things in the Power Four, playing for the Georgia Bulldogs in his second stint with the Dogs. And I see a lot of overlap there. I just see a guy that is, maybe not the biggest, definitely not the biggest, definitely not the tallest, but he makes the plays when they count. And in the playoff, that's really what matters the most. Can you elevate? Can you be not even perfect, but can you improvise and do what it takes to win? And he did everything that he needed to do against Georgia. Just some amazing rabbits that he pulled out of the hat. I just wonder if he can do it again. Can he repeat that against a Miami defense that's going to be a lot healthier than Georgia's defense was, a lot more experienced than Georgia's defense was in New Orleans? That is a matchup that I can't wait to see.
I'm not going to go too deep down the Trinidad Chambliss rabbit hole here, but I have been fascinated by his story all year. I like quarterbacks that play like that. He's, like you said, he's wheeling and dealing. He's playing, he's being a magician back there. He's making off schedule throws, and he scrambles, and he just looks really comfortable. He looks really talented. How does that guy not get recruited? Like, how does he end up at Ferris State? I mean, I understand where he's from, and not exactly a recruiting hotbed when it comes to, maybe national talent and other schools coming in there. But how does Michigan State, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, right? It is back. Like, how do these schools miss out on a kid like this?
0 stars.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? I think it is kind of an indictment a little bit on whatever the system is, whatever the format is, to get these guys looked at. And there's such a big camp circuit, with the 7-on-7s and doing a lot of things on air. How does he not get seen? I think that's a great question. That's a good question worth asking, especially now in this era of the transfer portal. And it's not just hitting when they're recruits, it's hitting when they're JUCO guys or when they've gone to a group of 5 school. And obviously Lane Kiffin, say what you will about him if you're an Ole Miss fan, he found a guy there. He knew what he was doing there. And his staff and his scouting team, they found a diamond in the rough. The question is now, for every other college in college football, how do you find that guy just a year or two sooner?
Yeah, it's been incredible. Shout out Ferris State University and head coach Tony Annese. There's my little home cooking homeschool plug. All right, you talked about Miami's defense. It was incredible against Ohio State. Julian Sayin he was just under duress all night long, and that's the reason why the Canes were able to advance. Miami, by the way, a 3.5-point favorite in this game, according to FanDuel. So not quite a toss-up or a pick-em, but pretty close. I mean, both of these games, 3.5-point spreads, according to FanDuel. So really, really close matchup expected. And it's going to be about keeping Trinidad Chambliss in the pocket, not letting him play make all game long like he was able to in the last round. And that comes down to Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. They were absolute monsters against Ohio State. Point blank, can they do it again? Can they be that same type of player against Ole Miss and Chambliss?
They're going to have a really tough challenge against Ole Miss, and it's going to be a different kind of challenge. For me, I mentioned I'm a Georgia guy. I think the perception around the Sugar Bowl going in was, hey, Kawan Lacey's banged up. He might have an AC injury in his shoulder, hasn't practiced very much. This could be a one-dimensional Ole Miss offense. Well, I think the reports about Lacey not practicing may have been true, but I think it was a story where instead of that being an indicator that he wasn't ready to go, it ended up being something that just proved that he's a freak, number one, and number two, that time off just helped him get to 100% or as close to 100% as possible. He did have the fumble that turned into a scoop and score, but the fact that he had almost 100 yards on the ground was huge for Ole Miss's offense. And if he's able to replicate that and give Ole Miss that threat of a running attack on the ground and, the extension of the running game, getting the ball to him as a receiver, that is in effect a part of their running game. That's going to be a tough challenge for Miami. And that's the kind of offense that gave Miami trouble in the regular season. Louisville, SMU, guys that can slice and dice you a bunch of different ways. And Ole Miss had multiple receivers this year with at least 500 yards receiving. You couple that up with the playmaking ability of Chambliss, a team that is now unified around this idea of, hey, our coach left us because he didn't think he could win a championship with us, and now we're knocking on the door of doing it without him. Ole Miss is really, really dangerous. I don't know if they are top to bottom filled with all the prospects that a team like Ohio State is, but they can give Miami's defense, a really talented defense, just as many headaches to game plan for and scheme for as Ohio State did, maybe even more.
I heard a little bit then, not a little bit, a lot of what you would do maybe, or how you think their formula should be for Ole Miss. Does it change what they normally do? I mean, or is this like they're just playing their game at this point? What they normally do should work against the Miami team, or is there, every game's different. They both have the film. They both saw what happened last round. But it sounds to me, and again, I'm not an SEC expert. I haven't watched Ole Miss all season long. It sounds like this is just what they do. Like this is kind of, they don't have to change a lot to maybe be effective against this Miami team in that pass rush.
Yeah, I think that the pass rush of Miami and the way that Miami has to scheme this up, they've got guys that have seen a little bit of everything now. They've come up against offenses like this, and they haven't really seen a quarterback quite as dynamic as Chambliss maybe throughout the season. Certainly not last round. Sayin's not the same kind of guy. He's a great quarterback. He missed some plays that I know he'd like to have back. When I go back and watch that Georgia tape and I watch that game, there were plays time and time again where I don't know if it was the inexperience of some of Georgia's pass rushers that were out there on the edge, but that edge was totally lost. I mean, it was on a milk carton. There was no edge being set by Georgia's defense. If Miami can scheme that way and just leave somebody out on that island or spy Chambliss a little bit and use some of that speed, especially in that secondary. I mean, Georgia was down to its third string safety by the second half in some instances and in some plays and packages. So I think the health of Miami's defense, just how nasty they are, they're just so physical. If they can be in the right spot and they can figure out, hey, how can we be in a spot where we don't allow Chambliss to get outside or surprise us? Maybe it means we give up 5 or 6 yards a pop, but it's better than having him surprise us and give up 15 or 20. I think that's kind of going to be the mindset of Miami's defense going in.
I think those will be the focal points. You've got Ole Miss's offense and Chambliss. You've got the pass rushers and the defense at Miami, but they also have to, the other aspects have to play as well. Miami's offense has to be out there. Ole Miss's defense has to be out there. How about that? Carson Beck, Mark Fletcher has been running incredibly hard throughout the entire playoff. And then Malachi Toney, I don't know if you can call him a true freshman anymore at this point with 13 games under his belt, but they have the opportunity to be pretty dynamic on offense as well. What does that matchup look like for you? Miami's offense and Ole Miss's defense.
Yeah, I think those are two sides of the two groups that throughout the season might have underwhelmed a little bit and maybe were the liabilities for a couple of wagons that you thought could be CFP contenders. And I think of those two, I saw Ole Miss's defense level up a lot more than Miami's offense did. And that's not to say that Miami's offense didn't play well against Ohio State. Was really impressed with how they ran the ball. But what we've seen from Carson Beck throughout the year and what I've seen from him in Athens is that there are times he goes through stretches where he is a liability from a turnover perspective, from throwing picks, from forcing balls in that he doesn't need to. And through the middle of the season, when Miami hit that rough patch, when they went from looking like a sure thing CFP contender to, I don't know, are they actually going to make it? A lot of that had to do with Carson Beck turning the football over. And when I looked at Ole Miss's defense against Georgia specifically, they were eating the Dogs' offensive line's lunch. Play after play after play. I think it was 7 total batted passes in that game. I mean, they were just opportunistic, very opportunistic along the line of scrimmage there. And that's going to be huge because Miami's offensive line, when you look at them, it looks like an NFL offensive line. In a lot of ways, Mario Cristobal has built the Canes like an SEC type of team. So that's a good little chess match in there that I'm excited to see as well. Ole Miss's defensive line against Miami's O-line. Can they repeat what they did against Georgia? And can Miami's O-line continue to maul like it did against Ohio State? And are we going to get good Carson Beck? Or are we going to get Carson Beck knocking on the door, knowing he's got a big opportunity in front of him? And is he going to maybe throw some balls that he wishes he hadn't?
Well, before we move on to our all Big Ten semifinal matchup, let's just talk about that line. If I was a betting man, and I may be, sounds like you're not loving that number. -3.5 for Miami. I'm hearing a lot of pro Ole Miss talk. Maybe I'm reading too far into it, but yeah, what do you think of that line, that number?
Beyond the X's and O's, beyond the stats, beyond the film breakdown, you got to ride a hot hand, and I love the momentum. That's what this college football playoff has been the last 2 years. Who's hot? Who got lathered up? And with the exception of Indiana, playing that first round game, not having the bye is still a big deal. And for me, I know I've come into this show and told you guys I'm an SEC cat, but it really has nothing to do with that. It's just all about what I'm seeing from the team aspect, the unity of this team. And when it gets into the crunch time of a longer tournament, when you think about teams that get hot in March Madness, it's the team that has a lot more than just the stats, just the X's and O's. It's the community aspect, the unity, the togetherness, and I see a whole lot of that with Ole Miss. So yeah, I like Ole Miss to win for sure. Maybe cover as well.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get anybody pound the table if you're riding with Chambliss and Ole Miss and what they've done, and just it kind of feels a little Cinderella like. You throw a March Madness reference out there, I'll throw one back. Yeah, that Cinderella feeling at this time of the year. They just kind of feel like they're destined a little bit with whatever, everything that was going on with them. All right,
how many coaches are they going to have? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I don't really know about all that.
Yeah, there is that. All right, let's shift our attention over to Indiana, Oregon. Man, Indiana. I mean, again, as a Michigan lifer, Big Ten guy through and through, the accomplishments in the turnaround at Indiana with Kurt Signetti already, just, like you don't see it. Like it's what happens on a video game. That's what I keep feeling. I don't know if you're a college football video game guy, EA Sports,
way back in the day, yeah.
That's what if you're taking a team that has no business winning and beating everybody. That's what it feels like. I mean, beating Alabama 38-3 was like, I mean, nobody saw it. There's no way you could have predicted it to look like that. I believe Indiana was favored by a touchdown or maybe a little bit more, even 9.5, I think, at some point. But like the run, just last year, this year, where they're at right now, Curt Cignetti, the whole picture that is Indiana football, it's insane. I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, you've been watching it just like all of us have. Is it the most unlikely development that you think you've ever seen and maybe has ever happened in college football?
I think in the history of college football, unlikely. In this era of college football, it's incredibly likely. It just depends on who the coach is, what kind of momentum they can put together on the transfer portal trail, and they haven't slowed down on that front either, even while they're on this run, which is amazing. And that's just a huge testament to what Sig has going on. But yeah, I would say historically, obviously, being the second most losingest, if that's a word, program in college football history, they came into the season as the most losses in college football history, and Northwestern passed them up at some point in the season. But yeah, they're the poster child of what you can do now with the portal, with a coach. It doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter where your zip code is, doesn't matter what your history is. All that stuff is irrelevant as long as you can find that lightning rod, and that's what Curt Cignetti is.
Yeah, he's been so fun to watch. I mean, I have a lot of people who went to Indiana, and I just can't even imagine what that must feel like and be like for actual IU homers, which I
can't feel real. It can't feel real.
Saying. It's just incredible. It's incredible what they've been able to do. And now here they are, favored by 3.5 over Oregon. Earlier in the season, they go out to Autzen, they get a huge win. That was kind of like, it seems silly to say like, okay, now we know they're for real. Like they were for real before that, but it really felt like, dang, they really went into Eugene and got a win on the road against Oregon. And now they'll obviously be playing on a neutral site. They're favored by 3.5. It's really hard to beat a good team twice. I guess we'll kind of go in reverse this time. We'll start with the big picture and a little bit of a prediction and breakdown. How do you feel about that number? Indiana being favored by 3.5 per FanDuel. And can they beat a good team twice? Because Oregon is really freaking good.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to for me is it doesn't like guarantee that they're going to lose, but it's hard. It's really difficult to beat a team twice. Look at Georgia. Look at that rematch with Alabama and Oklahoma. It's tough. It's really tough to do. So with that being considered, I don't like that number really for Indiana, and really it comes down to the coaching of Dan Lanning and his team getting hot at the right time, like we mentioned a few minutes ago, and Dante Moore getting more and more experienced and more comfortable as this season's gone along. And that's just such a complete team. Look, I know Indiana has really excelled at everything basically they've tried to do all year, with the exception of the Penn State game, which is a little bit of a nail biter there, but they still found a way to win. I just love the edge of Dan Lanning. That program, it's not just him, his staff, outside of the guys that are coaching position groups, they work so extensively on the mental edge. They work on that mental coaching, and they always have a plan. They always have a plan to manufacture bulletin board material or to manufacture something that gives them that margin and gives their whole team, not just one group of guys, not just one position group or one player, gives their whole team this resolve. I don't know how else to describe it. And in a lot of ways, it mirrors the psychotic nature of Dan Lanning. So the rematch factor being what it is, Dan Lanning's mental edge being what it is, I think this is going to be a really close one, if not an Oregon win.
All the time we see this, and we see this in college. We see this in the pros. It's always billed as quarterback versus quarterback, even though they're not on the field at the same time. They actually don't compete against each other at all, if you want to get specific about it. But how can you not look at the Heisman winner, Fernando Mendoza for Indiana, and Dante Moore, who may end up being the number 1 overall draft pick if he comes out. Both of them have been talked about as the potential number 1 overall pick in the next draft. This quarterback matchup is it's awesome. I don't know another way to put it. Fernando Mendoza, you mentioned the transfer portal. Is all 4 of them transfers again? I know that's happened a lot. Yes, all 4 quarterbacks transfer, guys, again. I just had to run over that through my head real quick. Dante Moore starts his career at UCLA. He's a Detroit kid, by the way. This is a kid I've known since he was about 14 years old when I used to hit those camps you were talking about earlier, and the recruiting rankings and all that stuff. But this quarterback matchup, you got to love it. Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore. Who do you got? Who do you got in that matchup, even though, yes, they're not on the field at the same time? But I think it does come down to which one of those guys plays the best.
Yeah, a couple matchups there when you go back to the quarterfinal matchups that I don't know if they'll look quite as elite as they did the first time around. Finney was not going against the quarterback that he's going to be facing now. The multi-interception game against Texas Tech, that was awesome and really impressive, and he'll never forget it. But I don't expect him to have as much success against Mendoza. But also, Indiana's entire offense, Alabama's defense all year has not been the same Crimson Tide defense that we've been used to seeing. They're not physical. They're not nasty. They might be as fast, but they don't always know where to go. They didn't always find themselves in the right place at the right time. They had a spotty pass rush that was really good when it was working and not existent when it wasn't. They're going to be facing a defense in Oregon that knows how to do all that stuff. And it's because of Dan Lanning. It's because of the guy that learned from Kirby and Coach Saban. Worked on both of those staffs extensively. So that Oregon defense, Indiana might have gotten the better of it the first time around. I think that this Oregon defense is going to get home. And we saw Alabama get home early in the Rose Bowl before things got out of hand. I think this Oregon defense is going to have some success against Mendoza, and I think it's going to get a little squirrely for him, and maybe not be quite as walk in the park, as much of a walk in the park as he's been used to over the last few games.
I just really wonder if I'm going to keep being made look like I don't know what I'm talking about by picking against Indiana. Every time they have a matchup, I'm like, it's okay. It's Indiana. Like this fantasy world we're living in has got to be running out, and they just keep proving me wrong. They're so solid from top to bottom. They are dealing with an injury, arguably one of their better defensive players, the freak little foot injury, ankle injury, whatever that was while he was celebrating. But their defense is opportunistic as any in the country. Aiden Fisher is in a coach on the field at linebacker. He kind of gets everybody right. They've got some NFL guys in the back end. How tough can they make it on Dante Moore? Because he has been phenomenal. He's as accurate as any quarterback in the country, just athletic enough to keep you honest and really hurt you, move the chains in some late down situations. So I think ultimately it does come down to quarterback play. And you just talked about what's going to make it tough for Mendoza. What about for Dante Moore?
The toughest thing for Oregon's offense is Oregon's offense, it seems like. And that's not to take anything away from Indiana, because I know that they're gonna do what they've been doing all year, and they're just gonna be really sound, be really solid, and be opportunistic, like you said. But in that game against Texas Tech, man, how many more points could Oregon have scored if they could snap the football? If they could figure out protections and do the right things when it mattered most. I like the idea of Oregon having those issues, surviving those issues, correcting those issues before playing Indiana. Now, the tough thing for me about Oregon, and I don't know how much of a factor this will be here in 2026, because they got Phil Knight money, and that means they're probably traveling in style. But if you look at Oregon's path to a national championship, they will have had to play in Miami, in Atlanta, in Miami again. That's tough. That can take a toll. So I don't know if that will show up in this game or not, but that's something to keep in mind, is just the travel toll going from coast to coast, round after round after round.
It's about as far as you can go, honestly.
Yep.
I mean, you go from Oregon down to Miami a couple times. That's about as far as you can go. Wes, thank you so much for the time. I personally love it. So we've got Wes Blankenship on record. He's taking the underdog in both games. He's got Ole Miss winning outright, I believe, and he's got Oregon winning outright. It sounds
and
like.
I'll say it has nothing to do with the Indiana narrative, disrespecting Indiana. I just like that mental edge of Dan Lanning and the fact that they've already played. It's just tough to overcome that. But if I'm wrong, I will not be surprised at all.
No, I mean, look, man, any way you slice it, we're going to have a national championship out of Ole Miss, Miami, Indiana, and Oregon. That's freaking cool.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And both games, again, 3.5-point spreads. Indiana favored just a bit over Oregon, Miami just a bit over Ole Miss, according to FanDuel. He is Wes Blankenship. You can check him out on the See Ball, Get Ball podcast. A noted and self-proclaimed SEC guy just gave you an incredible look at this all Big Ten matchup between Indiana and Oregon, and he threw some good Ole Miss stuff in there too. Wes, thank you so much for the time, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you.